Hey, as long as your knees are covered. Shall we start?
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, so today we're going to be doing Surah Al-Mutaffifeen. So we're making a lot of progress in Juz Amma. So mashallah to everybody who's been part of this since the beginning. There's kind of 3 or 4 high-level parts to this surah. The first part, Allah um, puts a curse upon the defrauders, and we'll talk about what that means when we get into the surah, and describes their sin and their crime. He then describes these types of people and
لمحجوبون ثم إن لفي عليين وما أدراك ما عليون.
now the word mutaffifeen uh, has a lot of interesting connections to different concepts. So apparently when you're filling a bottle or a bag with something to the very top and a little bit spills over and you kind of close the cap and that last part spills over the bottle, or you wipe off the excess, let's say rice of a bag when you're filling it, that is called tifaf. So that little bit extra, that the kind of over party and the transaction doesn't notice. Skimming a little off the top. And it will go both ways, and there's the subsequent ayahs mention both sides of the transaction in terms of the the sin and the crime in business. And so what's interesting here is Allah is being very, very strong with this word and this curse against. That's something you should take away from this ayah, is that it seems small to those people. Should take away from this ayah is that it seems small to those people themselves, and even if you were to see it, but it's a very serious crime. Um, so the next ayah, الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ. So those who take full measure when they buy from people. So the next ayah is describing from the customer standpoint, where they're effectively the greedy customer, and they're asking for more. And the language implies almost like they're bullying the seller. So when Allah says, الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ, so upon the people, this, the Mufassirun comment, is an indication of almost like they're bullying. So it's like if you went to a street vendor in some a home country, and you know that they need to sell their product, and you kind of have leverage over them. They're asking for $10. You say, "I'll give you two," and they're like, "No, I need 10. No, I'll give you two." You even grab it, you start walking away. You're like, "Yeah, you were good with two," and they're like, "Okay, fine, I need the two." They let you walk away. So it's that kind of transaction, that kind of behavior. And the word yastawfun means like to take every little bit. So like not leave anything behind, like get everything that you can get. And in the next ayah, وَإِذَا كَالُوا أَوْ وَزْنُهُمْ يُخْسِرُونَ. But then on the flip side, when they're the sellers, they give less to the buyer. So this is the seller side, and really where the critique is directed, because the prior ayah uh, is meant to then illustrate the hypocrisy of the next one. So as buyers, they want everything they can get. They want their full whatever they think they deserve. But as sellers, they're willing to take a little bit off the top for their own benefit. The way this ayah is constructed is also interesting in how Allah says, وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ أَوْ وَزَنُوهُمْ. So kail is like for measuring larger things, wazan for measuring smaller things, but both words for measurement. But the way Allah uses it in ayah, He doesn't say when they measure for them, meaning like when they measure a product to sell to them, or they measure the money they're receiving, because the money at that time was like silver or gold that had to be measured and weighed. Allah says when they measure them and when they weigh them. And so normally you would expect Allah in front of the hum for both of these. وَإِذَا كَالُوا لَهُمْ or أَوْ وَزَنُوا لَهُمْ. But instead it's just saying the maf'ul bihi, like the object, is the hum, which indicates that these sellers are not just measuring the product, they're measuring the person in a way. Like they're sizing up the person. And they're saying, okay, how much can I take from this person? This person's a little bit smarter. I probably can't cheat them as much. This person's a little green, maybe new to the market. I can get more out of them. So it's really kind of damning of their behavior. They're not just, even in their cheating, they're not consistent, right? They're not fair. So they're shrewd. They're shrewd in their cheating. And then Allah says, uh, yukhsirun. Yukhsirun meaning they cause loss. But what's interesting is Allah does this word that He chose is kind of open ended, right? So He's not saying they cause loss in wealth for the other person. Allah just says they cause loss in general. And so from this, you can interpret that their actions are causing loss in a number of ways. Of course, the obvious interpretation is they're causing loss for the person they're selling to, but they're also causing loss more broadly for society as a whole because they're now cheating other people. They're making cheating a common practice of the market that they're in. Now everyone sees, hey, they're cheating, I can cheat too, why not? So it's a trend that begins to spread. They also cause loss to themselves in a spiritual sense, right? They're losing in terms of the ajr, and their place in akhirah will be a place of losers. So any thoughts on these first three ayat before we move on?
The idea of like losers. It's kind of like, we say it like, as kids and stuff, like very casually.
Yeah.
But I remember like the first time like I saw the translation of it, I was like, wow, like God is calling people losers, like like the way like we like.
Yeah.
But it's obviously not the same way, but like it's just kind of interesting that like disbelief and lack of faith it's like literal loss, but literally losing out on like the best thing that you can possibly have. But it's also just kind of funny that it's like basic insult and probably in more than one
Yeah. Yeah, it's more than just like a playground taunt. Like I guess English language takes away from the reality of that label.
Think about like hello, what is this? Hello. I think about within like these first 2, 3, like at the department, it's like a whole like bureau for like weights and measures to like make sure that like when you go and get gas and like chicken or like whatever, it's gonna be like what you paid for because of just like the emphasis of like how sensitive that entire like market is like set up and like to this point. But then also too, that's when we think about like transactional sales. But you know, time is like a big commodity that we utilize. So you kind of consider like even on our own jobs, like it might be times where we like taking that extra time
Yep.
for like lunch or like we chilling during the workday. Like, oh, it's kind of slow right now.
Yes.
Let me hop on YouTube or whatever.
Yes. That's a great point. Yeah,
because we would be fully tripping if it's like something short on our check. We would be like, wait a minute. But meanwhile, we taking the extra time. You know what I mean? So it's like,
that's you're selling your time in that respect,
yeah,
right?
the time. Yeah. And they've like, it's contractual as well. So it's like that. That's an interesting piece that I think about, like when I read this first time, like with myself first and foremost.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know it's gonna be tough, but
Are like non-original thoughts allowed in the?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because I have like the.
We need to see the quotes.
all of these are non-original thoughts, but
Alright, then I'll have it. But I have the study Quran.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
like that because it gives
please,
the citation too. And if this is something you're gonna get to,
No.
About in terms of giving each thing its measure, that this extends to other things. So even your salah has a measure.
Yeah.
So then, if you do the same thing off the top, this also applies to everything. And everything has its measure. But clearly, like you're saying, especially in this day and time, actual weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Of everything has a measure. Yeah, it's a great thing to think about. Like everything has a right upon each other, upon right. So yeah, you have to be conscious of that in everything you're doing. Yeah. Another side point that was interesting in the roots and meanings of these words. So with that kaluhum and waznuhum. So kail is for measuring larger things, larger quantities, and then wazan is more precise for measuring smaller quantities. So the wazan is used for like measuring. The kail is like measuring the product that's being sold, like 5 pounds or whatever, right? The wazan is to measure the money that's being given to pay for the product, which requires a more precise measurement because you're measuring the currency in gold or silver, which just made me think like mizan comes from the same root, right? The scale Allah will use to weigh us, which indicates He's using a very precise scale, right? So it adds color to like every little thing He will measure on our behalf, right? Both the good and the bad. So it's not a rough measurement. It's a very precise measurement. Talk loud. They yell at me.
Like grab, but it's man.
Here, I'll pass it.
Right.
I'm thinking about that. I never knew that about Mizan in terms of it being more precise. I think that also the natural world, the planets and the sun.
So Allah says, أَلَا يَظُنُّ أُولَٰئِكَ أَنَّهُمْ مَبْعُوثُونَ. Do such people not think that they will be resurrected? So Allah is basically, He's asking this rhetorical question as a critique of this behavior, and implies that the only way that you could act like this, you could take from people what they owe, take more than you deserve from other people, and cheat like this, is if you didn't have faith in a resurrection and an accounting, or your faith isn't strong enough in that reality that's going to happen. You have to neglect that reality to be able to act like this because you're not worried for any accounting for yourself. That's why Allah asked that rhetorical question. Do they not believe or think that they'll be resurrected on a day where they will be tried for this? Allah says, for a tremendous day, the day all people will stand before the Lord of all the worlds. And so this series of ayat really kind of create an image in your head of someone that's being put on trial. Because Allah says they'll be resurrected for a day, right? Li yawmin adim, meaning like resurrected for them to be tried on this day and be given their account. The day all people will stand before their Lord of the worlds, right? So someone's being put on trial, they're standing in front of a judge, and they're being walked through, this is exactly what you did, what's your defense? And then they'll be given their judgment. And Allah says, the day all people will stand before the Lord of all worlds. So not just these people, but all people, which also implies that it's not just these people that will be sitting there hearing their judgment, but the customers they dealt with, the society they were in, will also be witnesses on that day to their crime and will testify against them. That man stole from me. That man was not, fair with me in the marketplace.
And to like extend that point, it's like your intention with like the cheating is like for what? And so sometimes you'll like look and be like, all right, like what was my intention in like doing this so I could get more? And then because I mean like that's kind of like what I think about that often. Like, what's the intention of like I want more to have what? And it's like, is it the things that's like kind of serving those naps, or is it the thing that's like getting you to like a lot? Like closer to a line. So like if you look up and be like, no, this thing was like self-serving. That is your test against you too. You know what I'm saying? Being like, yeah, like you cross yourself for like somebody's gay, somebody's like I don't know to big you up or whatever, or like just so you could like feel good yourself, or like
You
add the
oppress
suffering
yourself.
somebody. Yeah, you oppress yourself trying to oppress somebody else. That's the phrase. You played yourself.
Yeah, facts.
Congratulations.
Really, if you mean like proper logical
Mm.
knowledge.
Oh wow. Yeah. Like just a little bit of thought about it. Yeah. Subhanallah.
Which word is this?
ألا يظن. Then Allah says, كلا إن كتاب الفجار لفي سجين. Nay, the wicked are certainly bound for Sijin, or are in Sijin. So, this, like all the previous ayat, is illustrating how these people will be brought back so and resurrected so that they can be judged in front of the ultimate judge on their great trial date, that is Qiyamah. Then they'll be sentenced by Allah to their prison, which is Sijin. I think the word Sijin is also used, or a word derived from the same root, for prison, and more colloquial Arabic as well. Fujjar is an interesting word. So a fajr is someone who has broken the bounds upon them. A fajr comes from the same root of like the light breaking the I guess the barrier of the night, breaking through. So fujjar is a major indictment of these people that are brushing off what they do as small, right? So going back to like, you would think it's small what they're doing, they think it's not that big of a deal. But Allah is using waylun for them in the first ayah to curse them, and then is calling them fujjar, which is people that have completely broken and burst through the bounds of adab, of the rights they have, that people have upon them. So Allah is further emphasizing how serious of a crime it is, what these people are doing. Which, like, yes, go ahead. Wait, is that phrase from Arabic or from English though?
Hey, my brother.
Completely out of bounds.
Like blatantly, not blatantly owning, your ways of just wickedness and not caring, not even seeking to be shy about it. Some people might be like, okay, I should be praying, but it's like, man, it's Juma, I'm not going to the masjid. I'm gonna avoid this route because the masjid's right here. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a little bit of like, whereas a fajr is just like, bro, they'll can stand right outside. They don't care where they are. They will just do whatever.
They drinking the Heineken.
Exactly.
In front of the mess, you bring it over to tea. Well,
That's all, Mike, bro. I think thanks from English, man. That's not really. That's what I'm saying.
political career.
Yeah. Cut the mic. Another thing that's made me reflect on is, like I was saying, like Allah is indicating how serious of a crime this is, even if to us it doesn't seem as that big of a deal. I think Allah does this multiple times in the Quran in ways that I think are pretty striking. Basically, like, we really need to pay attention to what Allah explicitly calls out as serious, and not be fooled by our own perceptions of what's serious and what's not serious. Like, I forget the exact ayah, but Allah mentions like zina, murder, something else, and then disrespecting your parents back to back to back to back. And it makes you think, like, my God, like, disrespecting your parents is in the same breath as murder and zina, right? So again, like, things like normal people wouldn't think of as the same level. In Allah's eyes, like, these are grave things, right? So like, and the takeaway is we have to keep in mind the gravity of these actions based on Allah's criteria, not our own.
It is always interesting. Like, I don't know if you're about to like go into war and like you turn around.
Yeah,
Like, it's the same like interesting. You like hide like,
abandon.
people that you committed to. Like,
Speaking on how we perceive what is brave or not, I think we often describe these mutaffifeen as these, not necessarily associate ourselves with them. But then in in itself is an assumption that we're not doing this quote unquote small transgression.
Yeah.
But it's like you really have to be mindful. God is really speaking to you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Actually, that reminds me of one more thing I forgot to say earlier, which is when Allah talks about these people, al-mutaffifeen, He's not explicitly saying that He's talking about like the kuffar of the time, which this then goes to as supporting the position that this is a Madni surah, where Allah may have actually been talking even about the Muslims in the markets in Medina, and saying like it doesn't matter Muslim or non-Muslim. Allah is criticizing the criminals that are doing this act and defending the ones that are being that this act is against, like deen aside, right? Which again emphasizes the gravity of the deed, because it's kind of to your point. It doesn't matter Muslim or not. Like this is a serious thing to, and it's easy. Yeah.
There's a comparison, like a direct comparison.
Yeah.
So, but when they can take
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's the
it's more
hypocrisy.
like the
Yeah.
mindset that
Yeah.
so even if you
Oh yeah.
agree with people doing it,
have been stained by the evil they used to commit. So basically, all the theft that these people were doing, time, multi-transaction, and its follow-on implications, affecting their heart, resulting in more and more sin, and eventually these hearts get rusted over.
Or is it? Okay, this thing's still. Let's see. Okay, so this came up at our last session on Saturday. So if whoever doesn't know, like I do like a kind of a podcasting linguistics, and we're doing the 99 names.